Jai Hind all. My name is Arpna Saxena and I am Assistant Professor in MCA department. Today the topic which I am going to cover is cloud services this particular topic is covered under subject cloud computing with the code KCA014. In cloud services, basically I am going to cover two main services, IAAS and PAAS, although it consists of one more service, that is SAAS also. So, what is according to NIST, your cloud computing, it defines three basic service models, namely IAAS, PAAS and SAAS. That is, SAAS is basically for end users, PAAS is basically designed for developers, and IAAS for IT architect. So what is IAAS? It is the ability given to the infrastructure architects to deploy or run any software on the computing resources provided by the service provider. Here the underlying infrastructure such as compute, network and other hardware resources, for example storage, etc., they are managed by the service provider. Nothing is present on the user end, everything is there with the service provider. Therefore, the infrastructure architects, they are able to maintain the data center or underlying infrastructure with the help of cloud service provider. This enables for managing the applications that running on top of the infrastructure. Generally, the IaaS services, they are provided from the service provider cloud data center. The end users can access the service from their devices through web or command line CLI interface or with the help of APIs also. That is, command line interface we are having, and we are having web interface also, and also APIs is also provided by the service providers. Some of the popular IaaS provider, for example, we are having Amazon, AWS, from Google we are having Compute Engine, OpenStack and Eucalyptus. PAAS, the ability given to the developers to develop and deploy the application on the development platform, which is again provided by the service provider. Thus, the developers, they are exempted from managing the platform and the underlying infrastructure. Here, the developers are responsible for managing the deployed application and configuring the development environment. Generally, PAAS services, they are provided by the service provider on-premise or dedicated or hosted cloud infrastructure. That is, all possibilities are there with the PAAS. We could have PAAS on-premise, that is the service provider, they will use the infrastructure which is available with the customers and they provide the PAAS services, or it could be hosted on the cloud infrastructure. That is IaaS as well as PAAS, because for the platform we need the infrastructure also, so that infrastructure is being used by the cloud service provider which is hosted in their environment. The developers can again access the development platform over the internet through, again, web CLI support is there, then UI support, web user interface support is there, integrated development IDs are also available. Some of the popular PAAS providers, they include Google App Engine, Force.com, Red Hat OpenShift, Heroku and Engine Yard. SaaS, it is the ability given to the end users to access an application over the internet that is hosted and managed by the service provider. That is, the applications which are present in the SaaS, they are not installed on the customer side, they are present with the service provider, and the service provider, they provide the services of these applications to the users. Thus, the end users, they are exempted from managing or controlling the application, since all the components of your application, it is installed with the cloud provider, so they are exempted. The customers, they are generally not managing or controlling the application. The development and the underlying architecture, that is for maintaining the platform or the infrastructure, that is also not the part, not in the domain of the customers. Generally, SaaS service providers are hosted in service provider managed or service provider hosted cloud infrastructure. That is, both things are possible. Service provider, they manage, and the service provider, they host the cloud infrastructure. Both things are possible in SaaS. Thus, end users, they can access the services from any thin client or web browser. That is, customers, they are free to use thin or thick clients. Some of the popular SaaS providers, it includes Salesforce, Google Apps, for example, your Google Drive, your other services which you are using for the Google in your Google Classroom, etc. They are on the cloud itself. Then Microsoft Office 365. Now, in this figure, it is clear what is IAAS, PAAS and SaaS. If we look at the figure, this is IAAS, this is PAAS, and this corresponds to your SaaS. In IAAS, the red colored is the responsibility of the service provider, that is what we are having in the domain of the service provider, and the blue color, it is showing that what is present at the user, that is at the customer end. So, in the case of IAAS, servers, virtualization, compute, storage, all these things, they are present with the CSP, that is our cloud service provider. And above that, this is your infrastructure. Now, this comprises of your platform, and this is your applications. So, in the case of IAAS, all these components, they are with the customers. Now, in the case of PAAS, we are having servers, virtualization, compute, storage. Up till here, we are having infrastructure. Then above that, what we are having the components which provide the platform for developing the applications, for testing the applications, or for deploying the applications. So again, in the case of PAAS, these components, they are with CSP. And above that, this is with the end user. In the case of SaaS, all these components, they are with CSP, that is cloud service provider. Now, in this case, in the case of PAAS, your deployment, middleware, OS, network, this is your platform related services. So, in the case of we are having the your cloud service hosted environment, then in that case, all these components are with the cloud service provider. But in the case of the on-premise, that is few components, they are with the customers, then all these services are in that particular case. These services are available with the customers. What are the services provided in IAAS? We are having compute, storage, network, load balancers. So, computing as a service includes your virtual center processing units, that is your CPUs. For running the CPUs, we need virtual main memory for the VMs that are provisioned to the end users. In the case of the storage, we are having a separate term for this, that is our SAAS. It provides backend storage for VM images. Some of the IAAS providers, they also provide the backend for storing the files. In the case of the network, again, it is termed as network as a service, a separate component, because sometimes your different users, they only want to use the network component for managing their environment, which is to be provided by the cloud service provider. So, this component again hosted as a separate one. In the case of IAAS, it provides virtual networking components, for example, your virtual router, switch, bridges, etc. Then the load balancers, they are basically responsible for providing load balancing capability at the infrastructure layer, because we need balancing the load at all these components. So, there is another separate service which is provided by the IAAS. So in this figure, if you look, we are having physical infrastructure. It could be a compute, storage, network. Here, all these things, they are managed by your IaaS provider. Then above that, we are having a virtualization layer. No doubt we need the virtualization to, also. Why? Because as we are aware, in the cloud computing, all these services, they are provided on rent basis and customized also according to the customer requirement. So virtualization layer is needed. Above that, these virtualization layer, it will provide the virtualized resources for compute, storage, network. Here we are having different VMs which are created by this virtualization layer. And above that, we are having the load balancing layer for managing the load among managing the load or distributing the load across all these VMs. And after all these things, they are done, then we are having the IaaS consumer here. Now, what are the characteristics? Of IaaS? Web access to the resources is possible. In the case of IaaS, you don't need to bring all those hardware resources at your end. Everything is provided with the help of web browser. The IaaS model, it enables the IT users to access infrastructure resources over the internet. When accessing a huge computing power, the IT user need not get physical access to the server. Through any web browser management console, the users can access the required infrastructure. Then another important characteristics of IaaS is centralized management. As we have seen in the previous figure, different VMs, they are created, and these VMs, they are provided to the customers. So the users, they don't need to worry that what kind of load these load has to be put on these VMs, or what is the efficiency of these VMs. Everything is to be centralized, managed by the service provider. Another important thing is elasticity and dynamic scaling. It is another important characteristics of IaaS. The IaaS provides elastic services where the usage of resource can be increased or decreased according to the requirement. That is, if the client side request that he need more resources, for example, he need more storage capacity, then he need not to worry about it. He just inform the service provider, and according to the plan which is provided by the service provider, he will just pay the fees accordingly and start using the things over the web. So such kind of elasticity is possible. Even when the usage comes down and he want to return those resources back to the service provider, then that facility is also available in a one go. The infrastructure need depends on the load on the application. According to the load, the IaaS services can provide the resources. The load on any application is dynamic. That is, if your need goes up, you can request more resources. If the need goes down, then you can return back the resources. You don't need to pay that is, you just need to pay according to the services which you are availing. IaaS services are capable of proving the required services dynamically. Shared infrastructure is possible, as we have seen that all the infrastructure that is present at the service provider and he is creating the virtual machines for those components. Then pre-configured VMs are available. That is, these VMs, they are created according to the requirement of the user. If some customers, they need a specific requirement, that is, they need a specific kind of operating system or a specific kind of architecture, then they can request to the service provider, and if there is a possibility at the end of the service provider, then the service provider can provide those services to the client. So pre-configuration is possible according customer to customer. Metered services, that is, users need to pay only for what he is using. What is the suitability of IaaS? if there is a unpredictable spikes in usage. That is, when there's a significant spike in usage of computing resources, IAAS is the best option for the IT industries. That is, if your usage is going up and down and you cannot control it, this is the requirement of your business, then this is not a good decision to go for a infrastructure at your end, that is on the premise of a customer. Then cloud is the best option in that case. Limited capital investment for the small scale industries or for the organizations which are coming up, that is new startups, then in that case they are not having a huge capital available with them to invest in the infrastructure, but they need to compete with the already competitors which are existing in the market, and they are already in the market, so they are having a good infrastructure with them. So your IAAS, it provides a good opportunity for such kind of business models. Infrastructure on demand, that is, some organizations may require large infrastructure for a short period of time. For this purpose, the organization, they cannot afford for purchasing these on-premise resources. Instead, they want to rent the required infrastructure for a specific period of time. Where IAAS is not suitable, but there are certain situations in the business, or you could say the conditions in a business where it is not good to go on a cloud. So what are these? When regulatory compliance does not allow off-premise hosting. That is, your organization, it wants to go for certain kind of government compliances or standards. Then in that case, those compliances, they don't allow to go for a cloud. In that case, you need to go for a on-premise infrastructure. When the usage is minimal, that is, usage is minimal and the available on-premise infrastructure itself is capable of satisfying their needs. That is, you cannot just run behind a cloud concept and just seeing a market that there is a new technology in the market, so I should use it, my business should be on this particular kind of parameter should not help in making a good decision. If your usage is minimal and you are already having available infrastructure with you, then you should not go over the cloud. When better performance is required, since the IaaS services are accessed through the internet, sometimes the performance might not be expected due to the network latency. We are aware that cloud, all the services, they are over the they are over the internet, and we require an internet connection. But if our business is present in such a region where the network infrastructure is not good, then cloud is not a good option in that case. When there is a need for more control on physical infrastructure, that is due to certain security reason, as we have seen earlier, that all the infrastructure is hosted at the CSP end, then in that case he is having all the control of the infrastructure, but you need a control of the physical infrastructure. You want to control all the aspects of those resources which you are using, which you are paying rent for the to the CSP. Then in that case, cloud is not a viable option for you. Now, what are the benefits of IaaS? Pay as you use model. As we have seen earlier, that is, we need to pay only for the services which we are using. So this ensures that the customers are required to pay for what they have used, and this model eliminates the unnecessary spending on buying the hardware. That is, it leads to, you could say, it supports a green computing concept. Reduced TCO, that is, IaaS providers allow the IT users to rent the computing resources. They need not buy physical hardware for running their business, so their budget also comes down. Elastic resources. IaaS provides resources based on the current needs. Users can scale up or scale down the resources. That is, when the need goes up, they can demand more. When the need goes down, then they can return the resources. And this is possible dynamically. So it is done automatically using some load balancers, and these load balancers, they are again available with the CSP. The load balancer, they transfers the additional resources request to the new server and improves the application efficiency. Better resource utilization, because if one of the customer, requirement goes down and he return the resources or he return the virtual machines, then CSP can rent those virtual machines to another users. So it is it talk about the better resource utilization. The purchase infrastructure should be utilized properly to increase the ROI. IAAS ensure better resource utilization and provides high ROI for IAAS providers. It supports green IT, as we have already seen or discussed in other points. That is, in traditional IT infrastructure, we need all the hardware components dedicatedly. But here with the IAAS, we can rent the resources according to our requirement, and the elasticity is possible in the case of the cloud computing. So it results in green IT. But there are certain drawbacks of IAAS also. Number one is security issues. Since IAAS use virtualization as the enabling technology, hypervisors, they play an important role. So what are hypervisors? They are those virtualization tools which virtualizes the hardware. That is, hypervisors, they create the virtual machines. And there are many attacks. In the current scenario, many attacks are targeted to these hypervisors, because if hypervisor got compromised, then all the virtual machines, they are automatically come in control of the attacker. So most of the attackers, what they are doing nowadays, they are targeting these hypervisors. If hypervisors got compromised, then any VMs can be attacked. Most of the IAAS, they are not able to provide 100% security. It is not possible in the current scenario, because every minute a new attack is generating. Interoperability issues, this is another important drawback. That is, there are no common standards followed among the different IAAS providers. That is, if you want to switch from one vendor to another vendor, then this is not possible, because some vendor is following certain kind of architecture, another vendor is following other kind of architecture. So you could say it will result in vendor lock-in problem. Another important drawback is performance issues. IAAS is nothing but the consolidation of available resources from the distributed cloud servers. Here all the distributed servers are connected over the network. So if the network goes down, then the clients or the customers, they are not able to utilize the services. So the latency of the network, it plays an important role in deciding the performance. Another important concept is PAAS. PAAS allow the developers to develop their application online and also allows them to deploy immediately on the same platform. That is, as we have seen in the figure also, they are providing the platform. So PAAS, consumers or developers, they can consume language runtimes. They provide application frameworks. They provide online databases over the cloud, message queues, testing tools. They are that is, if you had already developed a product, a software, but now you want to test it, then the test, and you are not having the testing tool available in your organization, then you can go for over the cloud for these testing tools and deployment tools as a service over the internet. Thus, it reduces the complexity of buying and maintaining different tools for developing an application. Typical PAAS providers may provide programming languages, application frameworks for all these activities, testing tools, deployment tools, etc. Now, what are the services provided by the PAAS? we are having programming languages support. The PAAS providers, they provide a wide variety of programming languages for developing different kinds of applications. You could develop web application, you could develop a mobile application, you could develop a security based application, any kind of application, even the blockchain application you could develop over the cloud. And what are the language supports? We are having Java, Perl, Python, Ruby, Scala, Clojure, Go. These are just a few names which nowadays we are getting under PAAS. Application frameworks. PAAS vendors, they provide the application frameworks that simplify the application development. Some of the popular application development frameworks, we are having Node.js, Rails, Drupal, Joomla, then WordPress, Django, Spring, Play, Zend, etc. Database. This is another service which is provided under PAAS. Since every application needs to communicate with the database, so different vendors, they provide different tools, different databases for developing an application. Examples are your ClearDB, PostgreSQL, then CloudInt, Membase, MongoDB, and Redis. Other tools, they are required for developing, testing, deploying, for maintaining a software, for planning the software. There are certain software planning tools which are also provided by the PAAS providers. What are the characteristics of PAAS? Most of the PAAS providers, they offer services to develop, test, deploy, host, and maintain the applications in same IDE. So additionally, many service providers, they provide all the programming languages and the support which is required till the deployment of a application. Then web access to the development platform. We are aware that the PAAS is over the cloud. So what we need the web browsers, that is with the help of web UI. Any developer can get access to the development platform, and these web-based UI helps the developers create, modify, test, and develop different applications on the same platform. And this particular concept also helps when we need the collaboration of a team, and these team members, they are not located in the same region. Maybe few members, they are present overseas. So in that case, developing the application becomes very easy with the help of PAAS. Offline access is possible. The developer may not be able to connect to the internet for a whole day to access the PAAS. Now, in the case of when we making an application or we are making a software, then in that case we need the platform all the time. So in case of PAAS services, certain CSPs, what they do, they provide the services offline too. So in case if your network got disconnected or you are working offline, then they are providing certain syncing tools. So whenever you go online, with the help of these syncing tools, your work can be synced with the other team members' work. And all these things, they are being done automatically, no doubt with the consent of developer only. Then built-in scalability is there. Scalability is an important requirement for the new generation web or SaaS applications. It is very difficult to enable the dynamic scalability for any application developed using traditional development. In traditional development, dynamically allocating or creating new resources, platform related resources, is not a convenient thing. But in the case of the PAAS, this could be done very easily. Collaborative platform. If certain applications, they need collaboration of different platforms for their development. So the customers, they don't need to buy these platforms separately. They can just request the CSP, and your CSPs, they are responsible for providing these collaborative platforms in a single unit or in a single virtual machine to the user. Diverse client tools are available to make the development easier. PAAS providers, they provide a wide variety of client tools to help the development of different software. The client tools, it include command line interface possible, then web CLI, web UI, REST API and IDE. All these tools, they are available over the cloud. Developers, they can choose any tools according to their choice. These client tools are also capable of handling billing and subscription management. When the clients, they are using these resources, then some billing module should be there. So there is a billing and subscription management module is also there. Tools, they are also present, with the help of which the client can manage its resources. What are the advantages? Quick development and deployment is possible. If you want to make a software and this software requires new platform, then in that case you need to buy or need to take the licenses for purchase licenses for the development of that particular software. But in the case of the cloud, what is happening? You are availing these services over the internet, and with just one click you got the access to those resources. So the quick development and deployment is possible in the case of PAAS. It reduces the TCO. The developers need not to buy the licensed development and testing tools if PAAS services are selected. Most of the traditional development platforms, they require high-end infrastructure, and certain small-scale companies, they are not able to afford such a high-end infrastructure. But with the advent of the PAAS, they are able to compete with the large companies or the giant companies in the market. Supports agile software development. Nowadays, most of the new generation applications, they are using the agile methodology. So there are certain PAAS service providers which provide the support for it also. Different teams can work together since everything is over the internet. So there is no restriction over the team members, that where these team members, they are physically present. They can collaborate, they can come together and collaborate on a single project even if they are present a mile apart. Ease of use. Traditional development platform uses any of the CLI or IDE based interfaces for the development. The PAAS provides a wide variety of client tools such as CLI, web CLI, web UIs, IDE. Such kind of support is possible. So the developers, they are free to choose any client tools of their choice. That is, if they are more proficient with the CLI, then they can go with the CLI. If they are more proficient with the web UI, then they can go with the web UI. Such kind of supports, they are provided from the CSP end. Less maintenance overhead, since all the components are available at the CSP end. So, or you could say all the things, they are being controlled, all the virtual machines, they are being controlled by the CSP. So in this case, the maintenance is also the headache of the CSP. So in on-premise applications, the development company or software vendor is responsible for maintaining the underlying hardware. They need to recruit a skilled administrator for this case, but this overhead is eliminated by PAAS as the underlying infrastructure is maintained by the infrastructure provider, that is CSPs. And this gives freedom to the developers to put a focus on the development of the application. They need not to worry that if the data goes up or if they need more database, then how the more storage facility is being allocated to them. All the things, it need to be managed by the CSP itself. When drawbacks. Now, what are the drawbacks of PAAS? Now, the first one is again vendor lock-in, because everything is under the control of a vendor. So it is over the vendor that what kind of support, in what way he is providing to the users. The major drawback with the PAAS are vendor lock-in. The main reason for vendor lock-in is lack of standards. As we have seen in the IAAS, in the case of IAAS also, no organization or no CSP is following a particular standard or a general standard. Everyone is having his or her own architecture. So this poses a problem in the case of in the form of vendor lock-in. The other reason for vendor lock-in is proprietary technologies which is used by PAAS providers. Most of the PAAS vendors, they use the proprietary technologies that are not compatible with other PAAS providers. That is, from one vendor to another vendor, jumping is not possible. The vendor lock-in problem of PAAS service does not allow the applications to be migrated from one PAAS provider to another PAAS provider. If you are developing an application with one of the PAAS provider, then this is not possible that you can migrate it to some other platform which is provided by other CSP in this case. Again, security issues. Since everything is maintained and controlled by the CSP, so security become a major issue. And also, the user is using these services over the internet. So again, when you are communicating over a network or over the internet, then in that case, the security will become a problem. Less flexibility. The PAAS providers do not give much freedom for the developers to define their own application stack. They have to use the application stack being provided by the CSP. It depends on the internet connection. So if the internet goes down, then again the user is not able to use the cloud services. Thank you. And this was all about IAAS and